Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangout. Today, we get to hang out with the lovely Patricia Hittner-O'Connell. Welcome to the show, Patricia.
Thank you, Eugenie. Thanks for having me.
The pleasure. Now, I have been in your Facebook group, also run by Kareen Daniels, for a few years now, it feels like. And I've seen your name pop up everywhere over the past few years, yours and Kareen's. And I'm like, oh, these two ladies sound really interesting. They're challenging the status quo, they're putting different ideas out there. I really need to get her on the podcast. So thank you for coming on today. I've read a few of your blogs as well. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be an interesting conversation. So thanks for agreeing to come on the show.
Thank you for having me. And as you can see in the Facebook group, we're not afraid of controversy. We're not afraid of controversial questions. We're not afraid of debates, and sometimes they get heated. People are going to have different opinions, but as long as everybody's respectful, we don't have to turn off the comments.
Ah, man,
So
that's
we just
exactly
keep
what
it
I'm about.
rolling.
Yeah, just put it out there and just have, we should always be allowed to ask the questions, right? We
Absolutely.
should be able to ask. It's when we stop asking questions that the problems arise.
Absolutely.
Patricia, one of the things I love about the show is hearing people's journeys on how they came to homeopathy. So, what was your journey?
My children were very sick when they were little because I didn't know better. We would go to the doctor for their baby visits, and I just went with the program. And it became very apparent that they weren't thriving. They were very sick, their immune systems were shot to hell, and I didn't know what to do. And then I heard about homeopathy. That was more than 25 years ago. So we started working with a very Kentian type of doctor, and that worked until my son had an ear infection. And he wasn't able to treat it. He was still giving him like this one constitutional remedy. So that same day, I was chatting with this other woman who was trained by the late Dr. Robin Murphy, and she got that ear infection right under control, and we didn't have to go to the ER and didn't need more antibiotics. So I was so happy with that, and we worked with her for quite a while. We had to part ways after a few years. Then I found the most amazing homeopath named Paris. God rest her soul. She was amazing. She was trained by the Dr. Luc de Shepherd School. There's a group of homeopaths in the Boston area, and they all know each other, and they were trained by Dr. de Shepherd. So I worked with Paris for another few years and until her death, and she was amazing, taught me so much, and I'm forever grateful to her. And then I went to homeopathy school.
It's
But
beautiful when you have that relationship with a homeopath as well, hey? You just
absolutely.
you just get to know your clients so much better. I just had the loveliest email this morning from a client who I've been working with for about 4 years. And there's this one thing
Hmm.
that I feel like we've tried everything with her. And there was this one key thing that we've just finally nailed. And it is the most amazing thing. But because we have this beautiful relationship of working together for so long, the relationship becomes deeper and deeper. And you can able to help them on a deeper level because you go with your client through the ups and the downs. And
Absolutely.
no, it's the
Yep.
best. And you know whatever you say to them is completely confidential. So it's kind of
Hmm.
like a best friend slash counselor slash healer slash, safe space all in
Right.
one.
Yes, and that's the kind of relationship we had.
Oh.
So
And it's so great that you went to train in homeopathy as well. And you're busy finishing off some studies at the moment, I think you said as well.
I already completed one course and I've been practicing, but decided to get a different perspective because there's a new amazing school that opened in the UK, run by Gordon Sambridge, and Hilary Dorian's part, like she's one of the instructors. And it was very reasonable. And it's like, why not? Why not get a different perspective?
I
So I'm just, yeah, just about done with that.
I saw you write the name of the school and I have not heard of it. Can you tell me the name again?
Yeah, it's Central College of Homeopathy.
And it's in the UK. Oh, interesting. Are you able to
Yeah.
attend any of the lectures? Because you've got a few hours difference between you with
Well, the clinics are rough. I have to get up at 3 or 4. That's a little bit rough. But other than that, it's okay.
amazing. And I'll have to get them on the podcast because I'd never heard of them before. So when I saw your email come through, I'm like, oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah,
And
they're very nice.
And tell us a little bit about your blog, because you've had that for a while as well. It's organicpalacequeen.com.
Yes, and it's natural health and non-toxic living, which is what you need to do. You can take the little white pellets, but you really have to clean up your life. The pellets can't do all the work. You've got to do the work.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that. Hey, it's definitely important. So, the main thing why I wanted to have you on is that
Mm-hmm.
there are a subset of clients who are
Mm-hmm.
extremely sensitive to homeopathic remedies and can have really massive aggravations. And if you're a homeopath and you have maybe haven't been training that long, you might be really alarmed by a reaction like that or think the client might be exaggerating. I mean, we never think that, but you might be thinking all sorts of things or that, what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing wrong? And the client might be really put off by homeopathy and get really frightened by the reactions they have. So I specifically want to talk to you about that because I think that it sounds like you're more
Mm-hmm.
of a sensitive to remedies as well. Can you maybe tell
Mm-hmm.
us about some of just your thoughts on people who are sensitive to homeopathy, what they can do about it, what sort of reactions have you had, and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of intro us into that.
Sure. Okay. Maybe 25%. I've heard one homeopath say 25% of her clients are very sensitive. I think that's probably about right, but I think some of us who are sensitive seem to also attract the sensitive clients. Things might be our perspective might be a little skewed. There are some people that are so sensitive that they can't even be near. If they had a remedy sitting on their desk, they're going to feel it. So you just have to work with them and be very careful and go slow. And I was trained by Dr. Murphy, the first program I went through, to go slow and low. And that's what leads to stable healing. So with the very sensitive clients, you go slow and low and you listen to them and you know it's real. I felt it. I know it's real. And there's different degrees of sensitivity. Some are extremely sensitive. And I know it's not their imagination. I've been there. If they take a remedy, they'll tell you the remedy picture, and you know that they're not reading the Materia Medica. So they are extremely sensitive. One workaround is wearing remedies. So some people are so sensitive that they do best wearing remedies. And I've seen people make amazing progress just wearing remedies. And then after a while, they can take them orally, they can graduate, and it's not as big of a deal. So they're stronger. So it can make them stronger, but you can start off by wearing them, little plastic bags. And I just tell people put 3 pellets in the little plastic bag and put it on your abdomen for 15 minutes. And that's a dose. And so even wearing, we still do minimum dosing. I found that the wearing is more forgiving, so you can do more frequent dosing, but you still have to, you can't wear it all day and all night. It's, still a remedy. And I think that's something I wish we could all look into wearing remedies more for the very sensitive clients. Olfaction is another. Hahnemann talked about that. And that I've tried that, and yes, it does work. I've aggravated on it, so it definitely works. It's not as gentle as wearing. So I haven't found anything as gentle as wearing a remedy. And there was one time, Eugenie, I had a jaw tooth problem and it was so painful. And I needed Missourium and I only had it in a 200C. And I knew if I took it, it was going to aggravate the heck out of me. So I wore it and it worked. I also tried olfaction and it aggravated. So I wore it. So I dosed myself a lot of times. It was very forgiving, but wearing it solved the problem. And I know it sounds incredible, but it really does work.
Wow. So you would put 3 pellets in a little plastic bag, and then would you put
Hmm.
it like in your bra or in your pocket? Does it need to touch your skin, or can it just be anywhere on your in your clothes?
I heard one anecdote when I was in homeopathy school about a man who was wearing lycopodium in his pocket for warts. Like he didn't mean to have it in his pocket. He was supposed to take it, but just didn't get around to it. And his warts went away. So it probably would work in a pocket, but I still tell people to put it next to their skin.
Amazing. I There is a naturopath here in Perth actually who uses a lot of homeopathy, and she gets people to drop it in their navel like a liquid drop. So it's interesting that would you specifically, because I think you mentioned the abdomen, would you specifically place it there, or it doesn't really matter where on the body you place it?
There's been times like I've put it in my on my back or on my leg. This is when I had my dog maybe on my lap and didn't want the dog to get a dose.
It's awesome. And you probably
So,
do you have a sensitive dog as well? Because
yes,
yeah,
yes,
our animals tend to take on our issues, don't they?
oh, yes, you hit the nail on the head. My dog is so sensitive. She had an ear infection one time, and it looked like it was like bruised inside, not bruised, but scabby. So I used calendula cream, and it was 1X and 3 doses aggravated, but then it blew up and then it resolved. So yes, my dog is very sensitive too.
I also just want to say olfaction. So for anybody who's listening that might not know what that is when you would
Hmm.
just sniff a remedy. You would do that with the pellets as well, right? And the liquids. You can just take a sniff of the remedy, and that would count as one dose.
I've never tried to sniff a pellet.
Okay.
Everything I've tried has been liquid.
This is turning into a very funny podcast, like sniffing pellets. Okay, so I'm just thinking for clients who have the pellets that I guess you could try. Maybe some of our listeners can try sniffing pellets for us and letting us know how they go. And if that doesn't work, you could maybe put it in a little bit of, or just a bit of water and I guess drink it. Or I'm just trying to think if you only have the pellets, how would you then sniff it to try and get it in the liquid? If you had some alcohol and water, you can make a liquid remedy out of that and sniff that.
You could.
Yeah.
I've tried that and it works. And I've
Okay.
also tried water and aggravated, so it works.
Oh,
So
wow. People like you make great provers for homeopathic remedies. Have you been part
that's
of
what
any
I've been told.
provings?
That's what I've been told, but oh man, I don't know if I could do that. It would be crazy.
Yeah. And talk to me about water dosing. Do you use much water dosing?
Almost exclusively. There's a few clients who say they do much better on dry, and I have to respect that. But water dosing usually moves cases along faster, better. So, yes, water dosing.
And how do you do your water dosing?
What do you mean?
Oh, so there's different ways. Like some people obviously just put two pillars in a glass, stir it 10 times, take 1 teaspoon, throw the rest away. Or do you then hold that same remedy and then continue stirring it over the day? Or would you just take it from that same cup? Would you
Oh,
put it in your water bottle and
right.
shake it and drink it through the day? Like, how do you do it?
I tell people little spring water bottles work really well. Like you dump out half the liquid, like little bottles, like the little 3, 4 ounce bottles. Not everybody has those in the house, so I say a clean glass jar with a lid, and then they would succuss it. If they're very sensitive, 2 times, but most people succuss it 4 times. If they're really sensitive, I'll say take a toothpick, put it in, and then put it in your mouth. So toothpick dosing because they're getting less. If they're not that sensitive, just take a dose.
Wow. I mean, that completely boggles my brain because I'm not extremely sensitive to the remedies at all. So it boggles my brain that can do anything, but it's energy medicine, right? So whenever I doubt homeopathy, which funny enough, I still do after more than a decade and more than 6,000 consultations, every time I'm still like, how does it work? But I tell you what, Veda Austin's work, I don't know if you've seen her, but she's really made me believe in homeopathy because she just puts her intention in water or she puts water on an image and then crystallizes it, freezes it, and then the water will show the image of that substance or that thought or that intention, which is similar to the work of Masaru Emoto. But it just shows us how powerful it is. And our bodies are made up of, is it something like 75% water? I guess if you've got that information in that substance, it's going to work no matter how much of it. It's not the quantity that
Mhm.
you're giving that's going to make the difference.
Remedies are powerful. These little
Mm.
pellets are so powerful. And I think in our group, if we can get that message across that they're really potent, they're real, they're powerful, and you want to not fear them, but respect them. You want to
Mm.
respect that power.
And how do you, if you have had a big aggravation, and
Hmm.
for you and for your clients, typically, how quickly would you get aggravations? What do they tend to look like, and what can you do to antidote them? Or can you?
Yes, you can. You can antidote them. So I would get them very easily. The best way is with a remedy that matches your new state. For instance, working with my wonderful homeopath. And even the most wonderful homeopaths in the world, it's hard to know exactly. You don't know how somebody's going to do with a remedy until you give it. So here's an example. So we gave one of my children Cena 200C, and the house was standing on its side that night. It was intense and it was late. And so I can't stand this anymore. So I got chamomile 30C and gave a dose. It was too late to call my homeopath, and that calmed things right down. And we still saw some good benefits from the Cena. Just a remedy that matches the person's new state.
And
So
in
that
any
would,
other ways?
yes, I've antidoted things with rescue remedy, like aggravations with rescue remedy on myself. I haven't used that with anybody else. Usually I'm trying to find a matching remedy that would match their state. And I'm very careful, like to not have aggravations because my clients are so sensitive. And so many of them have come from, they're on their last leg with homeopathy. So rescue remedy for myself. That was after taking Arnica 1M, 3 doses. So that's too much for me. The rescue remedy took care of it nicely, though. You can also, like, I think, take a lower potency. I have tried the aggravation zapper, but that doesn't work consistently. It can work or it can aggravate the problem. Another way I've tried for myself, and I haven't really tried this on with too many other people, but I'd love it if other people could try it and report back their results, is to wear the remedy for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Like wear the remedy in the same potency. So say for instance, you took Phytolacca 200C and you're having an aggravation. Put a few pellets. You could try it. I can't guarantee it's going to work because I don't know enough about it, but it works for me. Put a few pellets in a baggie and wear it and just see if the aggravation calms down. So that's another way I hope we can all explore, maybe together as a community and see if that works.
I read that one on your blog, and that was actually the one that I'm like, okay, I have to get her on the podcast because that is really great. And it was ages ago that I read that. Maybe like I feel like it was a year ago. When did you write that blog? But I remember
Oh, over a
reading
year
it.
ago.
Yeah, I remember reading it and it stuck in my head. And that was when I was like, oh, okay. That's such a brilliant way of using it. Now you talk about the aggravation zapper. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What is that?
That's not mine. It's really just some people do it where they take more of the remedy, running a cup under water and then drinking it. But that hasn't worked for me. It worked one time for my husband, but it hasn't worked for me.
Yeah, I asked because homeopathic detox therapy or human chemistry, Ton Janssen's method, Roger Savage was on the show once and he said that you can, and Ton says this in his book, the same remedy that
Hmm.
aggravated you, you put that in water and you have a dose of that.
Hmm.
But in my mind, that's just taking another dose. But then Roger explained it as you put 2 pellets in a glass of water and you just drop it in. You don't stir it.
Hmm.
And then it just
Hmm.
kind of like as it moves its way through the glass and sinks to the bottom, you take one sip of that. So it's just gently putting the information in there as opposed to stirring it. I'm not a
Hmm.
sensitive enough prover or homeopathy user that I would notice a difference in that. But it would be interesting if people try that and see if it actually worked. I have tried that with clients in the past, not often, maybe twice, because I
Hmm.
tend to have clients that don't aggravate as much. But like you say,
Hmm.
really believe that we draw the clients that resonate with us most. And it makes complete
Hmm.
sense that you would draw the clients that are really sensitive because that you can help them the best. If they came to me, I wouldn't really understand it or be able to empathize probably as well with them because I haven't experienced that. But because you've experienced that, it's so perfect that they come to you because they have got somebody there that understands them. And homeopathy is all
Hmm.
about resonance. So being with a homeopath that you resonate with and that understand you, I think it's so important. And we get better results that way.
That's true. That's a big tent. It's a big tent, and there's room for everybody. And there's all kinds of different homeopaths and different styles. And you really do attract like attracts like.
Absolutely. Now, so you would stay completely clear of mega potencies, I'm guessing.
Yeah, especially with my clients. And I've also found the low and slow method works so well. I had one case where a child did well on a remedy, higher potency for a while, but then crashed. So we just went in, came to me, went in with 30C in water. That's what we had available, and that worked beautifully.
Okay. Amazing. And why do you think some people are so sensitive to remedies? What sort of,
I
do you
don't
have some?
know. I don't know. I think with myself, I think that's just me, but I know when my children were little, I did a lot of water dosing and I spilled a lot of remedies on myself. And I don't think that helped my vital force. So I'm not as sensitive as I used to be, so I must be getting stronger. But I don't think that was a good thing to do. So I tell mothers of children that if they're going to be dosing their children, just wear gloves so
Mm.
you're not getting remedy spilled on you. Because a dose for your child is also a dose for you if it spills on your skin. So I think that might have set it off.
I
I,
wonder if there's not something even like, I don't know that spilling remedies on you would necessarily do that because I'm just thinking of myself that I have made over 100 different remedies in one day, medicated them,
mm-hmm,
and I don't react to any of them. Funny enough, with the recent medical intervention that 90% of the world had,
mm-hmm,
when I would
mm-hmm.
use that one, I would sometimes get an aggravation, but I can make 100 remedies in one day and not have any aggravations. That was like
Oh
the
my
only
goodness,
thing.
Eugenie.
Yeah, interesting. And actually, the other staff felt that as well. They would make that remedy, and because we've got a dispensary with several staff and 2,600 different remedies, and so my staff do make orders all day long and don't get affected by it. But that was one that would affect some of us and make us feel like a little bit dizzy and woozy. Um,
That's interesting.
yeah, but I wonder with your clients and maybe yourself that's really sensitive, are you sensitive to other energies as well, or do your clients? Because do find the clients that I have that are very sensitive, they tend to be sensitive to people's emotions, to Wi-Fi, to different environments and things like that. And I've heard that it can be due to high mercury in some cases, but it can be so many different things, right? Like I wonder what sets up the predisposition for that and if there's something
Right.
underlying that we can use. But like you say, you're not as sensitive to it anymore. So clearly, as your vital force is getting stronger, that's helping as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder, like, this is the homeopath's brain in me.
Right,
What
right.
is the underlying cause? Is there something that we're missing or something else that we could be treating or looking at? Or, and that's what I was going to say is that being sensitive to things, I actually think it can be a superpower because it forces you to be really in tune with your body and your environment and only doing things that really serves you instead of going to a big crowd and feeling wiped out or going to an event that's near a 5G tower or taking high potencies. Those things don't work for you. So you just stay away from it. So I feel like it maybe
Mm-hmm.
puts you more in tune with yourself. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't know.
Maybe.
What do you think?
I mean, I think it's good if I'm treating sensitive people. I think it's a good thing. I think mercury is something very interesting. We should probably all be thinking about that. Trauma, I see a lot of trauma. People come. I think that can really set you off too. Maybe people have lived through a lot of trauma. One thing that's really interesting, and somebody finally said it. There's this amazing homeopath, Dr. Garang Gaikwad.
Yeah, he's
He is in
lovely.
our group. He's in that group.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He's like a young up and coming master. I think he's already a master. He actually said that American, like people in the West, need 30C potency. I don't want to misquote him, but we did have a post about it in our group. They need 30C potency. Indians, you can start at 200C or something like that. So I found that really interesting because it does seem like a lot of Indians are taking higher potencies and doing better on them. Like Banerjee protocols, for instance, there's a lot of 200C potencies, and that's what seems to be working in India. But is that going to work here? I don't know. So it's something to think about.
Gaurang has been on the podcast as well, and he is such a lovely man. And so,
Mm,
yeah, he's got such a zest for teaching homeopathy, and he's
yes,
really walked the walk. Homeopathy learning group. It's for homeopaths and home users alike, right? The homeopathy learning
yes, it
health group
is.
Q&A. It's changed names
Yes, it
like a
is.
couple of times, I think.
Oh, we've changed the
Yeah.
names and we're not the best at branding and marketing, but there's a lot of homeopaths in it and more home prescribers are joining.
And
So
you and Kareen both have a way of really challenging our thinking. And the questions that you put out there is just amazing because I think she has another group like Homeopathy and Art or something like that that I'm,
that's a fun group. Yes. And it really helps with learning the remedies. There's a visual attached to the remedies, and you have to think. That is a fun group. And she has another group, What is the Potency? And that's similar to the learning group,
yeah,
where there's challenging questions.
exactly. You two ladies definitely force us to think outside the box and to really question things. I like all of those groups. I must have trained my algorithm because those two groups come up a lot on my feed. And so I see it a lot. And I'm probably not as active in there as I should be, but a lot of it comes up for me. And it always gets me thinking. And I'm like, how did they even think of these questions? Like, you really thinking outside the box. I hope we get more people. I mean, there's 3,600 people in there already, and it's a really active group. And I don't know, do you just go in there and post every day, or do you schedule your posts? Because you guys are really active in there, and there's really good stuff going out there every single day. That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but it's fun. It's fun work. I just, whatever, off the top of my head in the morning, I'm drinking my coffee.
That's the other thing I was going to ask you. I'm glad you said about the coffee. Have you ever found things like coffee or camphor or those things that we're classically told can antidote remedies? Have you ever found any of
I
them antidoting a remedy for you?
I've wished coffee could antidote, but it doesn't for me. Sometimes I've wished it could. No, hasn't been a problem.
Okay, so you
And
haven't been able to, like, if you have an aggravation, have a coffee or take the remedy camphor and have it antidote the aggravation for you?
I've never taken camphor, like the remedy camphor.
Yeah.
I've never taken that. I usually try and find something that matches my state. You know, what's like, okay, what's my body saying now? And then just find a remedy. But I have not taken camphor. Coffee doesn't do it. I'm on the fence about peppermint. I really am. I don't know.
You know, we all get taught that coffee and you have to store your remedies away from coffee. You can't even walk past a coffee shop. Don't drink coffee. Don't use peppermint essential oils. Don't do this. Don't do that.
hmm
But have you found, so you say, even though you're super sensitive, you haven't actually found that any of those things can antidote
Oh,
aggravation
no,
for you
no,
or
no,
antidote your remedies? Because I'm really
no.
sad that we get taught that way because, like we get taught in homeopathic school that you don't take a remedy, don't eat for half an hour before and after your remedy. Don't have coffee if you have your remedy. Don't store it near your essential oils, all these sorts of things. And I believed all of that those first few years, and I'll be so strict with my clients. And then as time goes by, I accidentally had a coffee and then had my remedy, and I found the remedy still worked. And a couple of summers ago, I did this on purpose where I left my remedy kit in the car in Perth in the summer, which it gets 45 degrees Celsius here. And so
hmm
it's probably 60 degrees in the car. And they were my acute remedies. So I knew that if my kids get a sore throat and I use aconite, it always
hmm
works. And so I
Yep.
purposely left my kid in the car. And when the opportunity came to use aconite, it still worked as good as it
Still
always
work.
has.
Yep.
Even like leaving remedies in the sunlight or going through x-ray machines or all of these things. So I do think our remedies are a lot more resilient than what we give them credit for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Eugenie, because I'm sensitive, I don't want to have any like accidental spills. So when I give remedies to my dogs, I'll put it in peanut butter or like with a treat. So on a, paper plate, and they still work. So the remedies still work that way.
Amazing. I've started doing that as well. I gouged a little hole in a carrot and put a remedy in there and gave it to my donkeys. And it
Yeah,
still worked.
that's the easiest way to do it.
Especially
Everybody's
with
happy.
animals. I have to say,
Right.
our cats, because they're farm cats, so they're always injuring themselves. I don't know how they do it, but I can flip him on his back, open his mouth, and put a remedy in. So he's trained in that now. Same with my dogs. I just
hmm
lift up their lip and I put it in there. But like you say, if you're super sensitive, you don't even want to be touching the remedies.
You can't be.
Mm.
You really can't be.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that we've covered everything of how to help people that are very sensitive to remedies, what they can do if they have an aggravation, what sort of things to look out for, making sure that they find a
hmm
homeopath that understands how they
hmm
work. Is there anything else that I just feel like I have you here now? I have to make sure I ask you all the questions and get all the juiciness out of this. What else do we need to talk about to give the homeopaths an idea of tools that they can use, but also for the clients to know that there's not something wrong with them. They just need to be dosed differently.
There's not something exactly. There's not something wrong with them. That's not to say that you don't look for miasms because that the miasms are can be causing a block.
Mm.
So that's really a good point. So if a remedy is just not working and there's a miasm there, you have to treat the miasm. And you treat it with the hope that going forward they're going to be less sensitive. So that's another thing that we really have to consider too, is that there could be a miasm blocking or some other block. And so we really, you can't just say, oh, this person's sensitive. That's it for them. We're just going to have to be careful. You do have to look for the causes underneath. And I'm really glad you brought that up. We didn't sign off before talking about that.
Are there anything else that you found? I mean, for you, it was just using remedies over time and your vital force becoming stronger, it sounds, that
Yeah.
made you less
hmm
sensitive. There's the
hmm
miasms. Is there anything else that you found has helped to make people less sensitive?
I
Right?
think less trauma. I
Okay,
think trauma
yeah.
is such a, people come to us because they've been traumatized a lot of times and now they're not well.
And what do you like? Just thinking from a support point of view, when you have these clients who are very sensitive, what sort of things can homeopaths put in place? Because these are probably clients that are going to need a little bit more support, like a little bit more hand
They
holding.
are. They do. They do. So it has to, you can't have somebody checking in every single day with a new remedy. But maybe like after 10 days after you've taken this remedy, tell me how you're doing. So yeah, you do have to do more hand holding.
And do you have like an information sheet that you give them? Or I'm just thinking for the other homeopaths out there, maybe if we create like an information sheet, maybe this can be a blog for you as well. Or if you haven't done that, so that we can just all reference your blog, just like all the different ways that you can, but what you can do if somebody has an aggravation. So yeah, all the homeopaths around the world can refer people to your blog so they can read that up.
Oh, I
Or Patricia's compendium of things to do when you have an aggravation.
oh. Oh, I've lived through that. I aggravate on cell salts. So,
Really? Are you serious?
yes,
Wow.
yes.
Any particular cell salts or just all of them?
Very careful with cell salts too. So I try not to take the same cell salt too many times in a row. So I have found with very sensitive clients, they will aggravate on cell salts. So maybe if they're taking one cell salt, don't repeat it more than once or twice, and then take another one. So I did one time take 3 doses of calc fluor and developed like a ganglion. So I had to take
Wow.
some Ruta to get rid of that.
I almost can't believe that. Like I don't have any clients that's sensitive. Is the flip side of that that you heal very quickly from remedies as well? So when you have the right one,
Usually,
you
yes,
okay.
that is the flip side because as there's some people that don't respond well to remedies.
Yeah, I've got a
And
few of those. Oh
that's
my goodness.
and that's worse. That's actually worse.
It really is. I've got a couple of them, and you just look at all the different. I mean, I also love cases like that because it really gets you thinking. It's what is the thing that is blocking this client? I have
It's
one in particular.
blocking.
I love her so much. I've seen her for years. But then what's really interesting with this particular client, I've tried all sorts of things like really high potency opium, and I think was it moscus or something like that, really high potencies
hmm
to try and just get her to feel something. But then at one of the follow-ups, she was telling me about all these things that had happened and this and that and the next thing. And they were all aggravations of the remedy. And I realized that she just actually wasn't in tune with what the remedy was
She
doing
wasn't.
for her body.
hmm
And I'm like,
hmm
you've just said this thing, but you told me that the last time. So I know you think the remedy hasn't done
hmm
anything, but actually, that's the remedy that's done that. So sometimes it's just a
hmm
matter, maybe then using remedies like maybe lacum eternum to help them become more in their body so they can be more in tune with what's happening. So
hmm
there can be so many different, that's why I have to listen so carefully. Like we have the best job on the planet, don't we?
We do. We do.
The most frustrating and the most rewarding. And the like if
Yes,
you are a
yes.
lifelong learner that loves a good challenge and problem solving, it's the job for you.
Yes, it is.
Oh, amazing. Alrighty. Oh, I don't want this conversation to end because I'm actually finding it so fascinating. And I'm just, you know what the universe is probably going to do now after we've chatted? It's probably going to send me a whole bunch of really sensitive clients. And
Yes,
I'm going
that's what's going to
it
happen.
does that, doesn't it? Oh, it's so
That's what's going to happen.
yeah. I can't, like my brain boggles that you can take a calc fluid tissue sol 3 times and develop a ganglion. Like at the same time, I'm just like fascinated by the intelligence of our body that it can produce a ganglion, like just from a tissue sol. It's amazing. Our bodies are incredible.
It was crazy. And I had a break. Because I know how sensitive I am. I couldn't take it like 3 times a day or once every day. I had like maybe 4 days to a week in between doses.
Wow.
And I know.
I think one of my main takeaways for today that I really love is actually prescribing the remedy that matches the aggravation because I've always done like the water dosing, or I will do the 3 cup method. I don't know if you use that much. So the 2 pills in the water, stir, take 1 teaspoon of that water, put it into a new glass. I'm just explaining this for those listeners that might not know. I know you know.
Hmm.
Take
Yep.
1 teaspoon of that into a second glass, stir that. Take 1 teaspoon of that, put it in a third glass, stir that. And then you take 1 teaspoon of that water as one dose. And sometimes even the 3 cup method is too much for people. And you might have to start with a 10 cup method. Have you found that helpful?
No.
Okay.
I've tried that and it increases my aggravation. So I
Wow.
have tried that. Yeah, the most reliable way I found is just the matching remedy. But I think rescue remedy holds promise. So
Okay.
it's only my own personal experience. But if we could all experiment, then we'll know.
And
And
that,
also wearing, but
mm.
I don't have enough. I've tried it with a few people and yeah, it's better. But I think we need more cases and more examples and
Amazing. Yes, I really appreciate all of those suggestions. That's so great. And I hope that we can get a whole bunch of people joining the homeopathy learning group. And maybe we can do like a little link, get you and yourself and Kareen to do like a little link in there and just hear people's reactions. I know you actually have a few of those threads in the Facebook group already of asking people about aggravations and things like that, like what sort of aggravations they have. But I think it's important to, yeah, have this conversation and just know that you're not alone. There are people out there who are super sensitive, and for the homeopaths to be aware of all of that and ways that we
Mhm.
can do that. I'm going to use your prescribing the remedy of the symptoms of the aggravation because, like I said, I've been doing the water dosing with people, clients who have aggravations, a few that I have that do that, and it's never been that successful. So I have felt a little bit at a loss. I've tried the camphor as well. That's helped to some extent, but I really like the idea of prescribing the remedy that matches the aggravation. I like that. I'm going to
That's what
try that
worked.
out.
That
Yeah.
works the best, I've found. It's
Because
almost like your body is putting out symptoms of what it needs now, symptoms of the remedy it needs.
yeah, and that's the confusing thing as a practitioner because you then don't want to like you don't want to antidote the good stuff either. So sometimes it's hard for us to know, and we
Hmm.
get told all these like Chinese whispers of this remedy antidoting that one. Have you actually ever found that? You know, sometimes in the back of the books you will get remedies that antidote other remedies.
Hmm.
Have you ever found that successful?
I just go with what matches.
Okay, no, that
But
sounds
I
good.
know the antidotes, that would probably work too. But
Yeah.
I just like the match. What's the match? Like the Cena and this child was so chamomile. It was just like on
Mm.
steroids. So it's like, all right, this kid's gonna get some chamomile because I want to get some sleep tonight. This went on for hours.
Wow, wow. Yes, and that can cause some big aggravations. Have you found that also with some remedies, they just tend to aggravate more than others?
Yeah, Cena, I'll never go there again. My kids are grown now, so I don't have to, but
I find that with Sinner as well, especially if there is like an underlying worm picture. If you give a kid Sinner,
hmm.
they just aggravate. And I know that with my son, I gave that to him when he was probably about 3. He had a bit of an itchy bottom. And I swear it was like the devil himself. This child was possessed after giving him this remedy. It was possessed. That was a
But
huge aggravation. But I think it is if there's an underlying parasite picture, you're going to get more of an aggravation with that
I
remedy.
think you're right. I think
Yeah.
you're right. And maybe this child would have needed a 30C.
I'm pretty sure I gave my son a 30C and he just went cuckoo
It still happens.
completely. It's funny because I had actually completely forgotten about that and potentially probably blocked it out of my mind from PTSD. But when you mention that now, I'm like, oh, I remember we were in Tauranga at the time and I gave him the Sinner and he went
Yep.
ballistic. Oh, poor child. Shame they're my
I
little
know.
guinea
It
pigs.
was quite the night.
Oh, okay. I hope we've covered everything. I hope people found
Yes.
this helpful. Is there any last little things that you want to say? We've got your the
Oh, yes.
organicpalacequeen.com.
Before I forget, yes, there's going to be some exciting news coming up from Australia. Donna Sazius and some other homeopaths are working on a new project, so stay tuned.
Oh, you can't just say that. You're going to have to give more information.
It's going to be for acute care.
Oh, amazing. We definitely need more of
Yeah.
that over here. Incredible.
So
Awesome. It was lovely to chat with you, Patricia. Uh,
likewise,
I
Eugenie.
I will continue. I mean, I see you every day anyway in the Facebook land. So I will continue seeing you there on a regular basis in Facebook land. But thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience of all of this. And I'm sure it's going to be really helpful for a lot of our listeners.
Good, good. It's been so nice chatting.
Chat soon. Bye.
Bye bye, Eugenie.